Do you believe that love can be born in the most unlikely place in the world? Because that's exactly what happened when a cold-hearted millionaire and a humble cleaner crossed paths inside a mansion where money glittered. But hearts were broken. He had everything the world envies: power, luxury, respect. But he had no peace. She, with hands marked by work and faith shining in her eyes, carried nothing but courage and compassion. And when the two met, something impossible happened. Not a fairy tale, but a miracle born from humanity itself. Today, you're going to hear the story that turned guilt into forgiveness, arrogance into love, and loneliness into home. The story of how a simple cleaner taught a millionaire the true meaning of wealth, the ability to love. And before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Because from now on, every story will remind you of one thing: love may begin in the dust, but it always ends in light. The morning began in silence on the hill of Beverly Hills. Naomi Carter, a cleaner accustomed to the scent of soap and the simple chatter of modest homes, looked at the Langford mansion with a mix of apprehension and determination. The glass palace reflected the golden sunlight as if to boast of its grandeur, yet inside, it hid a hollow emptiness. It was there that Marcus Langford lived, a millionaire known as much for his fortune as for his coldness. Naomi had accepted a one-day cleaning job, unaware that it would change everything. As soon as she crossed the gate, she was greeted by suspicious glances. The staff whispered among themselves as though the very air there carried unspoken rules. They said no nanny had ever lasted more than a week with the millionaire's children. Naomi merely nodded in silence and got to work, the one thing she knew best. It didn't take long for her to notice that, while every surface gleamed, the house itself felt lifeless, as if sadness had settled into the walls. Marcus appeared shortly after, dressed in a dark suit, his face stern, his movements precise. There was something heavy about him, a weariness that didn't come from the body. He looked like a man who had gained everything yet lost what truly mattered. Naomi greeted him with quiet respect without elaborate words. As she began to clean, she could feel his gaze linger for a moment, curious yet distant. The millionaire was used to obedience, not to the silent presence of someone unafraid of him. The twins, Emma and Ethan, soon came running through the halls, all energy and mischief. They eyed Naomi with suspicion, giggling softly, already plotting trouble. The first prank was harmless when a spilled bucket followed by laughter. The second, however, was a splash of blue paint all over the cleaner's white uniform. Naomi took a deep breath. There was no anger in her eyes, only understanding. Kneeling down to their level, she said softly, "It's all right, accidents happen." The children froze. For the first time, someone hadn't yelled at them. As the cleaner resumed her work, Marcus watched from the staircase. He couldn't understand how someone could react with such calm to chaos he himself couldn't control. The mansion, a place long filled with shouting and tension, now carried a strange stillness. Naomi cleaned the floors, but somehow she was restoring something invisible, a balance the years had stolen. The millionaire paused for a moment, surprised by the natural ease of this simple woman amid the intimidating luxury. In the dining hall at lunchtime, the staff whispered again. They bet Naomi wouldn't come back the next day. They said her patience wouldn't survive the children's mischief or the boss's cold demeanor. But when little Emma appeared at the door and asked shyly if Miss Naomi would return tomorrow, the room fell silent. Marcus overheard, and a trace of surprise flickered across his face. It was the first time in months the children had asked for anyone. The afternoon faded beneath a red-tinted sky, and Naomi finished her work quietly. She put away her supplies, tightened her bun, and said goodbye with simplicity. Marcus gave a brief thank you, but his gaze followed her to the gate, a look that said more than words could. There was something new there, respect, maybe admiration. The cleaner walked down the hill, unaware that behind her, the twins stood by the window, secretly waving. When the gate closed, silence returned to the mansion. But it wasn't the same. The millionaire stood still on the veranda, staring at the horizon. For the first time in a long while, the sound of his children's laughter filled the house, light and unrestrained. Naomi Carter had left more than cleanliness behind. She had left a mark. A spark of life had begun to reignite something long forgotten. And on that hill, something, or someone, was about to change forever. The next morning, the sun had barely touched the mansion's windows when Naomi returned to the hill. The gate opened slowly and she entered wearing the same simple uniform but with a firm gaze. The corridors still carried the echo of silence, though something had changed. Perhaps the curiosity to see if that cleaner would actually come back. And she did, because courage sometimes is simply choosing to return where everyone else gave up. Marcus, the millionaire, watched her from afar, trying to understand why he cared at all. Emma and Ethan appeared running with mischievous smiles that announced trouble. A bucket tipped over, a ball rolled down the hall, and in seconds chaos erupted. Blue paint, flour on the floor, loud laughter. The staff watched from the doorway, amused by the show. "She won't last till lunch," one of them whispered. But Naomi didn't react with anger. She took a breath, wiped her hands, and looked at the children, not with judgment but with understanding. The cleaner walked over and knelt down, meeting their eyes. The children froze, surprised. "Why are you so angry?" she asked softly, her tone calm but firm, without threats. Emma turned away. Ethan pretended not to hear. Naomi held out a clean cloth and with a faint smile began to wipe the paint-stained floor. The two just stood there watching. There was more power in that silence than in any shout, and for the first time the mansion's noise turned into something else, into listening. Meanwhile, the millionaire followed the scene through the security cameras, intrigued. Marcus had never seen anyone handle his children like that. He had hired specialists, psychologists, award-winning nannies, where all had failed. But that woman, simple and without credentials, managed the impossible. She made the children listen. The millionaire zoomed in on the screen, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Naomi wasn't disciplining them, she was healing. Hours passed and laughter filled the air. Emma, once hostile, showed Naomi her drawings. Ethan helped carry rags, still pretending indifference but smiling shyly. The staff exchanged puzzled looks. The house, once frozen, now felt alive. The cleaner, through small gestures, was breaking the rigidity the millionaire had built around his own children. And without realizing it, Marcus began to see himself reflected in her tenderness, something he barely remembered feeling. During snack time, Emma asked if Naomi had children of her own. She said no, but that she had raised her younger brother since childhood. She told it without sadness, just as a story of love. The twins listened attentively, and for the first time their expressions softened. Marcus watched from the veranda, silent. There was something about that woman that unsettled him. The cleaner, unknowingly, was returning humanity to the home of a man who had long forgotten it. At the end of the day, Naomi was about to leave when she heard hurried footsteps. Emma and Ethan stood at the door, clutching their favorite toys. "Will Miss Naomi come back tomorrow?" the girl asked, shy but sincere. Naomi hesitated, glancing toward Marcus, who stood at the staircase. He said nothing, just nodded. And in that brief gesture, the millionaire acknowledged what he couldn't deny. She had won his children, and something within him. Naomi smiled and promised to return. As she stepped through the main door, the twins watched until her car disappeared around the curve. Marcus remained on the staircase, still feeling the house shift, lighter, warmer. The cleaner who had come to tidy up had cleaned more than floors. She had cleansed the silence, the absence, and he, so used to control, didn't know how to respond to a change that couldn't be bought or ordered. As night fell over Beverly Hills, Marcus climbed to his office and looked once more at the camera screens. Naomi's image flickered there, walking calmly down the street, unaware of how much her presence had already transformed everything. The millionaire turned off the monitor, exhaled deeply, and stood there, facing the emptiness that was slowly filling with questions. And outside, the cleaner kept walking, unaware that fate had just offered her a job she never asked for. The day dawned gray over the hill. Heavy clouds blended with the tense silence of the mansion. Naomi Carter arrived early, as always, carrying her bucket in hand but serenity in her eyes. The kind of calm that comes from faith, not fear. The staff whispered as she passed. She has no idea what she's gotten herself into. The millionaire Marcus Langford, his expression rigid, came down the stairs with the morning paper, and the weight of yet another headline tarnishing his reputation. The house seemed to breathe disorder, even amid its luxury. Naomi began her cleaning in silence. As she wiped the tall glass windows, shouts came from upstairs. The new nanny had quit. Another one. The children were running wild, throwing toys and pillows. The millionaire appeared soon after, exhausted. The employees exchanged uneasy glances, afraid to step in. Naomi hesitated for only a moment before climbing the stairs. She found the twins crying and, without saying a word, wrapped them in her arms. Slowly, the chaos began to quiet. Marcus stood in the doorway watching, unsure of what he was seeing. The cleaner he had hired to polish floors was now soothing his children with a gentleness no professional had ever managed. The twins nestled against her as if they'd finally found shelter. And in that instant, the millionaire realized something simple yet disarming. Naomi wasn't trying to be admired. She simply was. The difference between those two things is what moves hearts. Hours later, Marcus asked to speak with her privately. The proposal was straightforward. He wanted her to take the nanny's place. Naomi froze, confused. "Mr. Langford, I'm a cleaner, not a nanny," she said respectfully. But the look in the children's eyes standing behind him made her pause. There was pleading there, and something inside her answered before reason could intervene. "I can help for a few days," she said, not realizing she had just changed the course of her life. The staff didn't approve. Sharp words began to circulate through the halls disguised as polite smiles. They said the millionaire was blind, that Naomi was only trying to take advantage. But she didn't respond. She kept working, clean on the inside and out. The children laughed again, the house hummed with music, and even the air seemed lighter. The mansion that once echoed with loneliness now whispered with life. Marcus began to notice subtle shifts. Breakfast, once cold and mechanical, now came with the sound of children's laughter. The twins were drawing again, running, asking to be held. Naomi wasn't just managing the household. She was restoring an emotional order money could never buy. The millionaire, so used to control, found himself increasingly undone by the simplicity that was transforming what he thought impossible. And the more he tried to understand it, the more he admired her. One afternoon, as Naomi tidied the children's room, she found an envelope on the dresser. In elegant handwriting, it read, "Private, about your wife." She frowned, but before she could open it, Marcus appeared at the door. His gaze hardened instantly. "That's not your concern, Miss Carter." Naomi only nodded, saying nothing. The air grew heavy with tension, yet his expression betrayed something beyond irritation. It revealed pain. That night, the millionaire sat alone in his office, staring at the same envelope. Outside, Naomi tucked the twins into bed, telling a story about courage and faith. Her voice carried through the hallways like a balm, filling the emptiness that even Marcus couldn't name. He closed his eyes, listening from afar as the laughter of his children and the soft voice of the woman who was unknowingly rebuilding everything he'd broken intertwined in the dark. Later, Naomi turned off the bedroom lights, whispered goodnight, and quietly left. The clock struck midnight as she stepped outside. The cold hilltop wind brushed her face, and she felt a strange certainty. Something important was about to happen. From the top floor, Marcus stood at the window, the envelope in his hand, his heart unsettled. Something within him, perhaps guilt, perhaps hope, had begun to stir. Rain fell softly over Beverly Hills that afternoon, washing the mansion's glass walls as if the sky itself wanted to cleanse what lingered inside. Naomi Carter, the cleaner, worked in silence while the sound of raindrops created a melancholy melody down the halls. The house, once filled with the children's laughter, now seemed to drown in a heavy calm. There was a weight in the air, the kind that only appears when old secrets begin to whisper. Marcus Langford, the millionaire, spent most of his days locked in his office. The flickering firelight cast hard shadows across his face. He avoided everyone, even his own children. The twins, confused, asked why their father no longer wanted to have dinner with them. Naomi simply smiled and answered gently, "Sometimes people hide when they're hurting." She didn't realize how true those words were. One morning, Naomi overheard the butler, William, speaking quietly with another servant. The words floated down the hall. "They say Mrs. Langford's death was never really explained." Her blood ran cold. She pretended not to hear, but curiosity clung to her. From the very beginning, she had sensed something strange. An ancient sadness in the millionaire's eyes, something wealth could never disguise. And now, every glance of his seemed to carry an unspoken plea for forgiveness. Later that afternoon, Naomi found Emma and Ethan sitting in the main hall, gazing up at a large portrait of a blonde woman with gentle eyes. The golden frame shimmered in the sunset light. The children were crying softly, holding each other close. Naomi approached and knelt beside them. "She was beautiful, wasn't she?" she asked tenderly. Emma nodded and whispered, "Mom used to sing to us." Naomi smiled faintly and began to hum a soft old song, almost like a prayer. Her voice filled the room, pure and sincere. The twins calmed down, resting their heads on her shoulders. The millionaire, standing silently outside the half-open door, heard every note. The sound cut through the quiet like a living memory. He leaned against the doorframe, his eyes glistening with emotion he didn't understand. That simple, ordinary scene was what he had lost most, the feeling of home. And in that instant, something dormant inside him began to awaken. When Naomi finished the song, she covered the children with a blanket and turned off the lights. The mansion seemed to sigh. Marcus entered quietly, looking at his sleeping children and at the cleaner kneeling beside them. A soft light fell over her, reflected from his late wife's portrait. It was as if two worlds, past and present, touched in that single moment. And for the first time in years, the millionaire's heart beat without guilt. Naomi stood up, startled to see him there. Marcus tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. He finally murmured, "They haven't slept like that since her." His gaze drifted away, and Naomi replied softly, "Sometimes love just needs a little peace to return." It was the kind of sentence that didn't need a response, only silence. And their silence said more than words ever could. As Naomi descended the stairs, she felt the weight of what had just happened. She realized she had crossed an invisible line. She was no longer just the cleaner, but part of something larger, something that bound pain, faith, and rebirth. From the upper floor, Marcus watched her quietly. Her silhouette fading into the corridor looked like the thread of hope he'd lost with his wife. Outside, the rain stopped. The clouds began to part slowly, and the reflection of the wet mansion shimmered beneath the rising moon. Marcus stood before his wife's portrait, the sealed envelope still on his desk. He knew the past was about to knock at the door, and when it did, the fragile peace he had just begun to feel might not survive. The night of the charity gala arrived, one of those events designed to dazzle Beverly Hills high society. The Langford mansion was in chaos. Drivers, stylists, and assistants moved about like ants in a gilded hive. Marcus Langford, the millionaire, needed to keep up appearances. After all, society columns expected him to smile, even if his heart still lived among ruins. Naomi Carter, the cleaner, was supposed to accompany the twins only, but the children insisted, "We're not going unless Miss Naomi comes too." Naomi tried to refuse, but the innocence in the twins' eyes and the quiet insistence of the millionaire made her give in. Her friend Clara helped her choose a simple dress, navy blue, elegant but understated, modest enough not to draw attention. "You don't need to outshine them," Clara had said with an encouraging smile. As Naomi stepped into the car, she felt a strange anticipation, the kind that warns you that the night will change more than just your plans. The gala hall was a spectacle of extravagance. Crystal chandeliers rained golden light over marble floors, and the sound of champagne glasses clinking echoed like distant bells. Naomi walked carefully, caught between admiration and unease. The millionaire beside her looked like a living statue, his black suit flawless, his expression guarded, his posture carved from pride. But the twins, laughing and tugging her hands, brought warmth into a room built for cold admiration. High society, however, is like fine glass, beautiful, but ready to crack. One misplaced smile, one laugh too loud, and the judgment begins. A socialite with a perfect grin approached, her glass of white wine poised like a weapon. Her voice was low but sharp enough to wound. "I see Mr. Langford has upgraded his staff to morning. Even the cleaners get to attend galas now." Laughter rippled among the guests. Naomi kept her composure, lowered her eyes, and took a slow breath. Not reacting was her quiet rebellion. Then came the moment that would echo through every gossip column. The woman pretended to stumble and poured the entire glass of red wine over Naomi's dress. The deep crimson spread across the navy fabric like a cruel spotlight. For a heartbeat, the entire ballroom froze. Cameras stopped flashing. Naomi looked at the stain, then at the woman, and smiled softly. "Thank you for reminding me where I came from," she said calmly, dabbing at the fabric with a napkin. A simple act, yet powerful enough to shift the air itself. Marcus watched, something inside him breaking loose. For the first time, the control that defined him faltered. He stepped toward the socialite, his eyes glacial. "If you're short on dignity," he said loud enough for all to hear, "you might want to start buying some. You seem to afford everything else." The room went dead silent. Cameras resumed their flashes. And just like that, the image of the millionaire defending his cleaner began spreading, from cell phones to headlines. Naomi stood frozen, unsure how to react. She hadn't expected to be defended, least of all by a man who once avoided even smiling. The twin, sensing the weight of the moment, ran to hug her legs. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder, not as an employer but as an equal. His eyes said what words could not. For a fleeting moment, Naomi forgot about the cameras, the whispers, and the stained dress. When the gala ended, the city lights outside seemed brighter than ever. Naomi sat in the back seat, the children asleep on her lap while the millionaire drove in silence. Reflections of the skyline flickered across the car windows, a mix of scandal, grace, and something unspoken. "You shouldn't have done that," she murmured softly. Without looking at her, Marcus replied, "I couldn't stay silent." Sometimes, love begins with gestures no one plans. Back at the mansion, Naomi stepped out first. Her dress still damp, her heart still racing. Marcus remained in the car for a moment, watching her. The once cold man was learning the power of a simple act of humanity. But deep inside the house, someone else was watching too. A faint flash flickered behind a curtain, and the past, always waiting, was ready to strike again. The night was silent in the Langford mansion. After the gala, the lights went out one by one until only the timid glow of the fireplace remained in the grand hall. The millionaire Marcus Langford sat alone, a glass of whiskey in his hand. The firelight danced in his eyes, and the face that once wore a mask of control now looked too tired to pretend. Naomi Carter, the cleaner, walked past the corridor and, seeing him motionless, felt that something inside him had broken. She hesitated at the doorway, unsure whether to disturb the silence. The air smelled of smoke and loneliness. Without lifting his eyes, Marcus murmured, "Do you believe someone can get used to guilt?" Naomi stepped closer, her calm presence soft but steady. "Guilt doesn't want to be tolerated, Mr. Langford. It wants to be forgiven." Her words landed softly but carried weight. For the first time, he looked at her, really looked. Not as his employee, but as a human being. The millionaire exhaled slowly. "They told everyone she died in an accident." "That's not true." His voice shook. "She took her own life. Because of me." Naomi froze. The confession hung between them like a living shadow. "She found out I didn't feel anything anymore," he said. "I lived for numbers, contracts, appearances, and one day she got tired of existing in silence." The flames flickered in his eyes, a reflection of a grief long hidden. Naomi listened without interrupting. Her gaze carried the understanding that pain doesn't always need answers, only presence. She sat across from him, hands folded on her lap, and simply listened. Sometimes the most powerful act is to stay. Marcus spoke like a man unlocking an old vault. "I didn't cry at the funeral. I couldn't. Since then, everything I've built has been just to avoid facing the mirror." "And now?" Naomi asked softly. Marcus looked at his empty glass. "Now I'm afraid to feel again." The silence stretched, not awkwardly but meaningfully. The sound of rain outside played a soft counterpoint, as if the world itself were listening. Naomi replied gently, "Feeling doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." The millionaire looked away, and for the first time in years, a tear escaped his eye. At that moment, the difference between them, the power, the class, the past, seemed to dissolve. He was just a broken man before a woman who understood the weight of forgiveness. Naomi, the cleaner the world overlooked, saw what no one else did, a heart struggling to beat again. Marcus bowed his head, ashamed of his own fragility. But she simply smiled. "You don't have to explain yourself. You just have to start again." A faint click broke the silence. The sound of a recording device. Marcus's eyes shot up, startled. Naomi heard it too. The sound came from the shadows and a small device blinking red. She stood and walked toward it. "Someone recorded us." The millionaire followed, his face hardening. "This can't leave this room," but it was too late. The sound of wind outside seemed to announce the inevitable. Hours later, the news spread everywhere. Millionaire and cleaner caught in intimate confession. The headlines were merciless. Social media erupted with speculation, and cameras swarmed the mansion. Naomi woke to flashing lights outside her window. She grabbed her phone and saw the video, his voice, his pain, her compassion. Everything was exposed, and in every cruel comment, one truth echoed. The world doesn't know what to do when a millionaire shows humanity. Naomi went downstairs and found him in the study, watching the chaos unfold on TV. He turned to her with eyes full of fury and despair. "They turned my grief into a spectacle." Naomi took a slow breath. "And will you let them?" His gaze softened for a fleeting moment. Outside, reporters pounded on the door. Inside that house, where the past had finally been unveiled, the future was already beginning to crumble. The headlines spread faster than the wind that rustled through the palm trees of Beverly Hills. Billionaire and cleaner caught in intimate confession, blazed across every screen, every radio, every social feed. The Langford mansion, once a refuge of silence and luxury, had become a battlefield surrounded by cameras and microphones. The millionaire Marcus Langford stood by the window, face pale and tense, while Naomi Carter walked down the stairs with a tightening heart. Peace had shattered like glass on marble. Outside, reporters shouted questions that sliced through the air. "Is she your mistress, Mr. Langford? How much did the cleaner get paid to cover the scandal?" Marcus stayed silent. He was trapped between protecting his image and protecting Naomi. The woman the world called the maid was now the eye of a storm he had unknowingly unleashed. Each camera flash outside felt like another verdict being cast. Naomi tried to stay composed even as the ground seemed to shake beneath her. Upstairs, Emma and Ethan cried, confused and frightened. "Why are they mad at Miss Naomi?" the little girl asked through trembling lips. Marcus had no answer. Naomi, ever gentle, knelt beside them and said softly, "Because sometimes when people don't understand love, they'd rather attack it." Her voice was the only calm in a house unraveling at the seams. In the main hall, the Langford Group board members were already waiting. Cold faces, expensive suits, calculating eyes. "You need to act fast, Marcus," one of them said. "The company's reputation is at risk." The millionaire said nothing, his jaw locked tight. "Fire the cleaner. Cut all ties. The press will forget in a week." The words sliced through the room like blades. Naomi heard everything from the doorway, her heart quietly breaking. When he finally found her in the corridor, silence filled the space between them. Marcus tried to speak, but she stopped him with a sad smile. "I understand, Mr. Langford. You have to protect what you built." He closed his eyes as if trying to hold back the inevitable. "That's not it," he began, but she shook her head gently. "It's okay. I just don't want to be the reason your family suffers even more." Naomi packed in silence. Each fold of clothing carried a piece of the story that never got the chance to bloom. The children rushed down the stairs, tears streaming. "Don't go, Miss Naomi," they cried, clinging to her legs. The millionaire watched from the staircase, frozen, his face pale as marble. Naomi knelt and held them tight. "I'll keep loving you, even from far away. Love doesn't need an address." Outside, the sky was darkening, a storm brewing on the horizon. Naomi crossed the garden as camera flashes lit up her face. Reporters thrust microphones toward her, shouting questions, but she said nothing. She just walked, head high, her expression calm and resolute. The same look that had won over the twins and disarmed the millionaire's cold heart. At the gate, she turned once more toward the mansion, then walked away. Marcus stood alone at the top of the stairs, listening to the echo of her footsteps fading. He was no longer the man who hid behind money. In that moment, he understood that all his wealth couldn't buy back what he had lost. The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly as rain began to fall outside. The millionaire who once controlled empires now couldn't control his own heart. The next morning, chaos took a new shape. The housekeeper burst into the office, pale and trembling. "Mr. Langford, the children, they're gone." Marcus looked up, disbelieving. The coffee cup slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. "What do you mean, they're gone?" Panic filled the air. The millionaire ran through the corridors, shouting their names. But all he found was silence, and a note written in small, shaky letters. "We went to find Miss Naomi." The storm fell over Beverly Hills like divine punishment. Lightning tore through the sky, and the wind bent the palm trees under the fury of fate. Inside the mansion, The millionaire Marcus Langford paced back and forth, phone in hand, desperation etched across his face. "Search everywhere now!" he shouted, his voice hoarse. Emma and Ethan were gone, and the silence that once kept him company had turned into a nightmare. Rain battered the city. Police cars tore through the avenues, sirens slicing through the night while helicopters swept the hills with beams of light. Marcus, the man who once controlled everything, couldn't even control his own breath. "They went after the cleaner," the butler muttered, pale, holding a crumpled newspaper. The millionaire looked out toward the horizon, and guilt fell upon him like thunder itself, heavy and unforgiving. Across town, Naomi Carter watched the news from the small house where she was staying. When the twins' faces appeared on screen, her heart nearly stopped. "Oh my God," she whispered, grabbing her coat without a second thought. The cleaner didn't wait for the police or permission. She ran into the storm, her umbrella flipping in the wind, rain plastering her hair to her face. Love doesn't need a title, only courage. Meanwhile, Marcus searched through streets, alleys, and empty lots, calling his children's names like a prayer. "Emma, Ethan," he shouted, his voice swallowed by the storm. Drivers stopped to help, but he barely heard them. With every step, the millionaire felt the chasm widen between the man he had been and the father he should have been. The slick pavement reflected the flashing red and blue lights, as if the whole world were crying with him. Naomi followed her instincts. She remembered the stories she used to tell the twins, stories about bravery and hope, and somehow those memories guided her steps to a small, abandoned park, where an old swing creaked under the rain. In the distance, two small figures huddled together, shivering. "Emma, Ethan!" she screamed, running toward them. The children turned, their eyes wide with relief. "Miss Naomi!" they cried, rushing into her arms. She wrapped them in her coat, hugging them tightly, her body trembling more from emotion than from cold. "I told you I'd never leave you," she whispered. The sound of the rain seemed to quiet out of respect for their reunion. The children sobbed against her chest, and Naomi, though exhausted, managed a smile. The cleaner the world had dismissed had just done what all the millionaire's money couldn't, save what truly mattered. Minutes later, the flashing lights of police cars painted the park red and blue. Marcus arrived, soaked to the bone, his eyes scanning desperately through the darkness. When he saw Naomi holding the twins, time stopped. He ran toward her without hesitation, collapsing to his knees in the mud, tears streaming down his face. "You found them," he murmured, his voice breaking between gratitude and disbelief. Naomi nodded, catching her breath. "They just needed love, Mr. Langford. That's all any of us need." The millionaire, once accustomed to solving everything with power, understood for the first time that some victories come not from control but from surrender. He embraced her, and the four of them stayed there under the rain, bathed in flashing lights. It was the perfect portrait of humanity, fragile, flawed, yet redeemed. As paramedics wrapped the twins in blankets and cameras captured the moment, Naomi stepped back. She watched Marcus holding his children, tenderness softening his face, and felt a tightness in her chest. That love wasn't hers, but she had been the bridge to it. The millionaire looked at her, eyes glistening, and nodded silently in respect. In that instant, and between rain, tears, and flashing lights, something shifted. Not just their fate, but the meaning of everything they had lived. The days after the rescue felt like a new dawn. The silence inside the mansion was no longer heavy. It was peaceful. The twins' laughter once again filled the marble halls, and for the first time in years, Marcus Langford, the millionaire who used to see the world only in black and white, began to notice colors again. Naomi Carter, the humble cleaner who had turned chaos into calm, now moved through the house with quiet grace, not seeking attention, only purpose. Naomi helped the children with homework, prepared dinner, and told bedtime stories. Marcus watched from a distance, feeling as though he were witnessing an everyday miracle. It was as if the mansion, once ruled by luxury and loneliness, had started to breathe again. The cleaner's presence did more than tidy surfaces. It washed away grief, guilt, and emptiness. The millionaire was beginning to understand that true wealth wasn't in his fortune, but in the feelings he had long buried. One autumn morning, Marcus found Naomi in the garden, watering the flowers she had planted herself. The sunlight brushed against her face, and for a fleeting second, he wondered how he had never noticed the quiet beauty she carried. The serene strength of a woman who had seen the world's cruelty and still chose to smile. "You brought life back into this house," he said softly. Naomi smiled. "I just cleaned what time had dirtied, Mr. Langford." But both knew she had done far more than that. Over time, their gestures began to speak louder than words. Marcus found himself waiting for moments when Naomi would appear in the kitchen, apron tied around her waist, hair pulled back in that effortless way that somehow made her seem almost poetic. Sometimes his gaze lingered longer than it should, and she pretended not to notice. The cleaner kept her distance out of respect, but her heart, her heart, had already begun to disobey the rules. One night after putting the children to bed, Naomi found Marcus in the library, seated by the fireplace. He looked different. No tailored suit, just a white shirt with sleeves rolled up. The firelight flickered across his face, revealing warmth behind the once cold eyes. "I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done," he said quietly. Naomi replied simply, "Gratitude is the most beautiful form of love, Mr. Langford." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full, rich with unspoken emotion. Marcus stepped closer, slowly, afraid to break the fragile spell between them. "Naomi," he whispered her name for the first time without formality. She looked at him, her heart pounding. For one breathless moment, the millionaire and the cleaner were no longer from separate worlds. They were just two wounded souls, learning how to love again. But the world rarely forgives such stories. Rumors began to spread among the staff, and soon even the tabloids took interest. Naomi felt the stares, heard the whispers, endured the veiled mockery. Still, she stood firm. She knew that true love doesn't shout. It transforms. The millionaire ignored the noise, unwilling to hide anymore. He had lost too much already to let fear dictate his life again. One afternoon, little Emma ran up to her father with a drawing. "Look, Daddy."
"It's us,"
she said proudly, showing 3 figures holding hands under a giant yellow sun. Marcus smiled, and Naomi, seeing the picture, felt her eyes fill with tears. The children already understood what society still resisted to accept, that family is built on love, not appearances. And in that moment, Marcus knew for certain, he didn't want a life that didn't include Naomi. That night, while everyone slept, Marcus stepped out onto the balcony and looked up at the starry sky. Inside, Naomi was folding clothes in the soft glow of a lamp. Their eyes met through the glass door, and for a second, time stood still. A quiet smile passed between them, light as air, a whisper of love, pure and unspoken. But peace never lasts forever. For as love bloomed within the mansion's walls, something darker was stirring outside, and it was coming for them. The calm that had settled over the Langford mansion didn't last long. Like a creeping shadow, the news spread through headlines and social media. Millionaire involved with cleaner, the scandal shaking Beverly Hills. The words cut like knives, and suddenly the pure love that had been quietly growing was dragged into public judgment. Naomi Carter, once invisible, was now the subject of tabloids, and the price of truth was steep, with interest. Cameras began to swarm around the mansion gates. Reporters shouted questions that sounded more like accusations. Did she seduce him? How much did he pay for her loyalty? Marcus Langford, the once admired millionaire, was now portrayed as a weak man, manipulated by a woman beneath his class. Naomi, her heart tightening, watched as her name was twisted and her dignity weighed in gold. Then Victoria Langford, Marcus's late wife's sister, made her entrance. Elegant and venomous, she arrived like a wounded heroine, vowing to protect her sister's legacy. With cold eyes and a rehearsed voice, she accused Naomi of exploiting Marcus's grief. A humble cleaner pretending compassion to win fortune. How convenient, she told the press. And the public, hungry for scandal, believed every word. Victoria's lawyers moved quickly, filing a lawsuit to gain custody of the twins. Their claim was vicious, and that Naomi was a manipulative influence, an uneducated woman unfit to live among the elite. Headlines screamed, "Cleaner threatens Langford heir's inheritance." Marcus watched it all unfold, fists clenched, torn between rage and helplessness. Each accusation against Naomi felt like another wound carved into his children's hearts. Naomi, however, remained calm, though her pain was immense. At night, she sat alone in the kitchen, whispering prayers as the wind rattled the windows. "Lord, let the truth not drown in the noise," she murmured. clutching the small rosary she'd carried since childhood. There was no glamour in her suffering, only faith and quiet strength. Yet the stares and whispers followed her everywhere, as if loving a millionaire were a crime. Marcus tried to handle things quietly. He met with Victoria, offering peace, explanations, even compromise. But she didn't want justice, she wanted revenge. "You destroyed my sister's name," she said, tears glinting like glass. "And now you let this woman stain our family." The millionaire, drained, met her gaze in silence. He had learned from Naomi that not every battle is won with words, but this time, silence wouldn't be enough. Inside the courtroom, every glance was a duel. On one side sat Victoria, poised with her pristine lawyers. On the other, Naomi, humble, her trembling hands folded in her lap. Marcus sat between them, the weight of the world pressing on his shoulders. Each false testimony, each calculated lie burned in his chest. Yet whenever Naomi lifted her eyes and met his with quiet faith, it was as if she whispered, "Hold on. Love knows how to fight silently too." The media turned the trial into a circus. Social networks were split. Some called Naomi a gold digger, others a wronged angel. The millionaire lost contracts, friends, and reputation, but he no longer cared. What hurt most was the confusion in his children's eyes when they asked, "Why do people say Miss Naomi is bad?" Their innocence exposed the cruelty of adults. On the eve of the final hearing, Naomi entered the small chapel inside the courthouse alone. She lit a candle and prayed silently, surrendering everything to God. Outside, Marcus watched her through the glass, his chest tight. He knew this woman had saved his life in ways no one would ever understand, and at that moment, he made his choice. If the world wanted truth, he would give it, even if it cost him what little of his reputation remained. The courtroom was packed that morning. Cameras, journalists, and onlookers sat in utter silence, waiting as though for a spectacle. At the center sat Naomi Carter, the cleaner accused of manipulating a millionaire, her gaze calm and steady. She wore a simple navy blue dress, her hair pulled back in a low bun, yet her presence carried the quiet dignity of a queen. Marcus Langford entered moments later, dressed in a dark suit but with the face of a man who had chosen to confront his past. The judge called for order. Victoria Langford, poised and confident, straightened in her chair, eager to witness the downfall of the unlikely pair. Her lawyer spoke of reputation, morality, and inheritance, words that sounded empty, brittle, wrapped in arrogance. On the other side, Naomi sat still, whispering silent prayers. The millionaire watched, his heart pounding. Every insult hurled at her felt like a blade, but he waited for the right moment, for love and truth to finally meet in the open. When the judge gave the defense the floor, the air in the courtroom tightened. Marcus rose to his feet, hands trembling, eyes glistening. "Your Honor," he began, "I am not here to defend a social status. I'm here to confess." The room erupted, cameras clicked, reporters leaned forward. "For years, I hid behind guilt, coldness, and cowardice. The woman everyone judges didn't destroy my family, she saved it." The words cut through the silence like thunder. He spoke of the nights Naomi comforted his children, of how her kindness rekindled warmth in a house that had forgotten how to love. He told them how the cleaner, without ever asking for anything, gave back to the twins the laughter he had lost. "She didn't seek fortune, she sought faith. And if I stand here today a better man, it's because this woman taught me what no book, no therapy, and no amount of wealth ever could." The silence that followed was the loudest the courtroom had ever heard. Victoria tried to object, furious, but the judge raised a hand. "Let him speak." Marcus took a deep breath and continued, "Yes, I am a millionaire, but for the first time I've realized that true luxury is peace, and peace is what Naomi gave me, without asking for a thing in return." His voice wavered, but his eyes were steady. "I, Marcus Langford, declare before everyone, this woman is not my downfall, she is my salvation." A murmur rose, then softened into restrained applause. Some reporters lowered their cameras, visibly moved. Naomi wept silently, her tears unhidden. The judge, visibly touched, struck the gavel once. "Mr. Langford, the court thanks you for your honesty." After a pause, his voice softened. "The custody petition is denied, and this woman shall be treated with the respect she deserves." Victoria looked down, defeated and but too proud to admit it. Naomi sat still, hands covering her face. The millionaire approached her slowly. unafraid of the flashing cameras, and took her hands gently in his. "You don't have to prove anything anymore, Naomi," the world heard. She looked up at him, eyes filled with warmth, and for a moment there was no courtroom, only two free souls breathing the same relief. Time itself seemed to pause within that gesture. Outside, a crowd awaited them. Flashes, voices, applause. Marcus, for the first time, didn't hide. He faced the cameras and said firmly, "She's the best thing that's ever happened to us." Beside him, Naomi stood humble yet radiant, her presence emanating quiet power, the strength of someone who had conquered prejudice with love and truth. As they descended the courthouse steps, hand in hand the twins ran toward them, smiling wide. The world seemed to have found color again. Yet even in triumph, Naomi knew that not all love finds peace easily. Sometimes peace arrives before the heart is ready to accept it, and hers, still trembling, sensed that destiny had one last test to give before love could truly find its home. Months had passed since the trial. The Langford mansion, once cold and silent, now seemed to breathe again. The laughter of children echoed through the halls. The sound of clinking pans mixed with the aroma of fresh coffee. Naomi Carter, the cleaner who had turned a mansion into a sanctuary, now ran her own small cleaning business in a modest neighborhood. Every house she cleaned was more than a job. It was a promise. Every pain can be swept away if love is the cloth that wipes it. The millionaire, Marcus Langford, spent his mornings quietly helping in the small office. In rolled-up sleeves and a calm gaze, he looked like a new man. The same hands that once signed million-dollar contracts now held spreadsheets with the care of someone guarding his own heart. Sometimes Naomi laughed, watching him wrestle with the vacuum cleaner. "I never thought I'd see a millionaire learning to clean a rug," she'd tease. And he'd reply, "And I never thought I'd find peace with a cleaner." The children, Emma and Ethan, were living proof of transformation. The little girl mimicked Naomi in everything, from her hair bun to her gentle, firm phrases. Ethan, once rebellious, now helped his father organize the garage. Luxury had lost its shine. Simplicity had taken its place. It was as if love had rebuilt the foundation of the home, trading marble for affection and silence for laughter. One quiet evening, Naomi was washing her hands at the kitchen sink when she heard a familiar sound outside, the hum of an expensive engine she knew too well. She looked out the window and saw a black car parked in front of her modest home. Marcus stepped out, wearing a dark suit and holding a bouquet of flowers. The children ran behind him, smiling. Naomi's heart raced. For a second, it felt like time had circled back to where everything began. He entered without a word, handed her the flowers, and met her eyes with tenderness. "Naomi," he began, his voice steady, "you cleaned my house. Now help me clean my heart." The cleaner, surprised, laughed through tears. The millionaire knelt, not in submission but in humility, the kind that only love can teach. The children watched wide-eyed, as if witnessing a fairy tale they themselves had written. That proposal wasn't just a wedding, it was a covenant of rebirth. Marcus, the man who had once lost everything to silence, now bowed before the sound of faith. Naomi, the woman who had learned to survive pain, accepted love without fear. The world could call them unlikely. He, the millionaire with a mended soul. She, the cleaner with an unbreakable one. But together they were the truest picture of redemption. The following days were simple, yet full of purpose. Naomi continued her work, now alongside other women also seeking a second chance. Marcus invested in their dreams, turning her small company into a network of new beginnings. "Cleaning houses is easy," Naomi said once. "What's hard is cleaning what life leaves inside us." And he smiled, knowing that single sentence summed up everything they had lived. One afternoon, little Emma asked her, "Miss Naomi, how do you know when you're really home?" Naomi smiled softly. "When fear leaves and love stays." The girl nodded, holding her hand. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, bathing the room in golden warmth. The kind of glow that doesn't come from wealth, but from peace. At the doorway, Marcus watched in silence. And in that moment he understood that the greatest treasure a man can own doesn't fit in safes. It fits in arms. The cleaner and the millionaire had become one heart, one home, built not with bricks but with faith, forgiveness, and love. For the first time their lives were truly clean, not of dust, but of fear. Maybe the greatest lesson Naomi and Marcus's story leaves us with is simple, yet powerful. Life changes the moment we decide to clean not just what's outside, but what's been piling up inside us. How many times have you swept a room but left resentment untouched in your heart? How often have you tried to polish your image but ignored your soul? The millionaire and the cleaner proved that true shine doesn't come from luxury. It comes from the spirit. And in the end, we're all searching for the same kind of home, the one where love is strong enough to silence fear. Now tell me honestly, what part of your own story needs cleaning today? If this reflection moved you, if it made you think about faith, courage, and new beginnings, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here every week we share stories that inspire, lessons that heal, and truths that set you free. Because just like Naomi, you too can turn pain into purpose and realize that the home you've been searching for might already be within you.